Punk rock
They
and
were, of course, in
punk rock and MBA. If you do not know, subscribe, leave some love, and leave a like to this content creator. Awesome content creator, really on point, and I think that he has really an interesting perspective on a lot of music that I actually do not share the same do not share, right? But that are actually like really interesting enough where it's not he's wrong and I'm right, or someone it's just like he has a different way to interpret music and see the music industry and stuff like that. And I think that like because of that, like he should be actually like he deserves all the love that like he gets, right? Green Day. Ever heard of Green Day? Green Day. Oh my fucking god! With the YouTube algorithm, with a fucking whispering a melody. I'm scared of a fucking the MCA lawsuit. But basically, not. But yeah, Green Day actually not my favorite, and not my fav. Not my favorite artists. Like, I actually don't vibe exactly with Green Day. It became a phenomenon and I kind of missed it. It's quite similar to My Chemical Romance. So let's check, let's discover and check this out. Discover the story of Green Day.
instantly branded as sellouts, they were, of course, instantly branded as sellouts, as I'm sure plenty of people in the comments are going to say. They were banned from Gilman, and overnight they became one of the most hated bands in the eyes of the DIY punk community. What's up, everybody? I'm Finn McKenty. This is the Punk Rock MBA. Welcome back to my How They Got So Big series, where I deconstruct important bands and do my best to figure out how they got to where they are. In this episode, I'm going to talk about a band that's very near and dear to me, and that band is Green Day. Back in 1993 or so, my friend Kevin showed up to school with a tape by a brand new pop punk band in his Walkman. The name of the band was Green Day, and the album was called Kerplunk. And I'd seen them play shows with other bands I liked, like Operation Ivy and Crimp Shrine. I grew up in Seattle, and I only went to, I think, 2 shows at Gilman, but that 90s Bay Area Gilman scene was also home to the bands that I was just absolutely obsessed with, like Spaz, Capitalist Casualties, Dystopia, Man is the Bastard. And although Green Day couldn't possibly be more different in terms of their sound, the bands I just talked about would be like grindcore or power violence bands. They were part of the same community, and I personally was really excited to see one of the Gilman bands blow up and put that scene on the map. So how did they go from playing basement punk shows to selling tens of millions of albums, packing arenas all over the world, and inspiring thousands of kids to start their own band? I'll do my best to answer that question in this video, so let's get into it. Key factor number 1, the DIY punk scene. As I said in the intro, Green Day's roots are in the DIY punk scene, specifically in the early 90s scene that revolved around a legendary venue in Berkeley, California, right outside San Francisco, called 924 Gilman Street. Now, I'm not going to try to tell the whole story of Gilman here, because that's a whole other video in itself, and other people can do a much better job than I can, but I really can't say enough about how vibrant and special this scene was back then, and how important it was to Green Day's career. Basically, Gilman was kind of like the West Coast CBGB, and the period where Green Day came up was like the years when Blondie and the Ramones were coming up in 70s New York City. There was just this explosion of creative energy around Gilman back then, and Green Day was right there in the heart of it. Again, I'm not going to try to document all of this. I'm not going to try to list all of the bands that are part of the scene, because there's just way too many of them, but a couple of my personal favorites that you may want to check out if you're not familiar with them would be Operation Ivy, J Church, Tilt, Iconochrist, and last but definitely not least, Sticky. But getting back to the point of this video, basically what it comes down to is they were in the right place at exactly the right time. There was this incredibly vibrant scene happening right in their backyard. They jumped into it, and this, in my opinion, was the spark that ignited the rest of their career for 2 reasons. First, and most obviously, this scene was an existing ecosystem that essentially solved the 2 biggest problems that most new bands face, namely audience and distribution for their music. There was a whole network of venues like Gilman and the Cattle Club, labels like Lookout, Honey Bear, and a personal favorite of mine, Asian Man Records.
This is really cool. So basically, it was some public space, not public space, but like a scene, right? Where like both producers, entertainers, and fans were actually really close to each other, and it was like kind of like this it was like it wasn't it was really underground. So this is actually really a cool place. What the fuck?
Zines like Maximum Rock and Roll and Comet Bus, and tons of people who would go to essentially any DIY show to support whatever band was playing. And to be clear, I'm not taking anything away from them. Yes, they were in the right place at the right time, but like I said in my Fall Out Boy video, that only takes you so far. It is on you to make the most of it, and that is what they did. They played with everybody, including some really odd lineups with hardcore bands like Blast and Shelter, and a lot of more or less crust punk bands like Destroy, Filth, Neurosis, Blast, and
I actually like what so luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. This is actually quite a beautiful quote.
They played with everybody, including some really odd lineups with hardcore bands like Blast and Shelter, and a lot of more or less crust punk bands like Destroy, Filth, Neurosis. And if you're not familiar with these bands, these are the most ultra DIY, quote-unquote, punk as fuck bands that you could possibly find back then. And like I said, Green Day played with a ton of them. The point here is that they were not scene tourists that randomly happened to play with a few DIY bands on their way to becoming rock stars. They were right there in the trenches, playing in basements and backyards of punk houses, on the floor of DIY record stores like Epicenter, and yes, of course, at Gilman. And this led to their big break, which came in 1988 when they signed to Lookout Records, which was kind of like the label counterpart to Gilman. It was the label at the heart of the Bay Area DIY scene back then, and it just put out the debut EP from Operation Ivy, who, as most of you know, featured Tim and Matt that would later go on to form Rancid. And the rest is history. They put out 2 albums for Lookout, which sold incredibly well for a DIY punk band, and that eventually got them on the radar of major labels. And the second thing, which is less obvious, is that in addition to giving them that initial launch pad for their career, it instilled and honed ethics and values in them that would inform the rest of their career. The same values that made them stand out from other bands and connect with millions of kids all over the world. And here's why. The Gilman scene was built on a set of more or less clearly defined values, as illustrated by the sign that hangs on the door of Gilman to this.
Okay, so what are the values? No racism, no sexism, no homophobia, no alcohol, no drugs. Okay, this is cool, actually. No fighting, no stage diving. This is actually cool values. And I'm surprised that, like, for a DIY scene, so basically kind of like a messy place, so I actually try to make it like basically friendly to everyone. This is actually really awesome.
Very day.
Big up to big up to them, like, for being
I'm
this
sure
awesome.
plenty.
Okay, I'll say it again. Big up to them for being that awesome. Fucking like awesome people.
People are going to disagree with me in the comments. To me, it's crystal clear how Green Day have upheld these values throughout their career. Of course, within the context of being a major label band where you do have to make some compromises. For example, taking out the aggressively queer band Pansy Division on one of their first big tours, to the entire American Idiot album, to bringing fans on stage with them to play the songs with the band in kind of an arena rock version of how you get up on stage at a punk show, grab the mic, sing a couple lines, and jump back into the crowd. And to those of us who grew up in the DIY scene, that stuff may seem kind of obvious, but to a kid who's never had exposure to those values, these ideas are mind-blowing, and I think it's a huge part of why people love them, because I think most kids have a very sensitive bullshit detector, and by the same token, they also recognize and love people like Green.
Yeah, this is true, and this is also like, it's a double-edged sword where like the bullshit detector that he talks about is also something that, like, you can the same people have like this thing where, like, you see when someone is genuine, honest, and trying his best. And this is something that, like, a lot of people do not understand, like, as consumers, as fans, as like people that just enjoy trying to find the artists that will actually, like, move us, like make us feel something. while these crowds can be cold at times, they are also really forgiving to people that are actually trying to do their best and that are visibly just not trying to fucking prove something to anyone, or trying to actually make someone actually like look bad, right? Just people that do their thing. I get what I'm saying. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe I feel that like I'm right for at least a couple of people, right?
They keep it real, don't play the rock star bullshit, and actually believe in and support a community. And key factor number 2 is that they sold out. Or did they? So look, given that the topic of this video is how did Green Day get so big, clearly part of the answer to that question is that they signed to Warner Brothers to release Dookie. It's a major label with the kind of resources and relationships that Lookout or any other indie label at that time just didn't have. And these days it's debatable whether you need a label at all to build a global following, but in 1994 it was a very different story. Back then it could cost well over $100,000 to record a major label quality album, and because there was no internet to speak of, you also needed the cash to print physical copies of a release, and to market it you had to buy expensive print ads, you had to get airplay on radio and MTV, and needless to say, radio and MTV were not going to give Lookout any attention. The bottom line is that it was a lot harder and more expensive to put out music back then, and signing to Warner meant that Green Day would have the resources to make a great sounding record, including over $100,000 to record Dookie, and also market that album to millions of people. And that's something that was just not going to happen on a DIY punk label. They wanted to be the biggest band in the world, and to do that, they needed to sign to a major. Now, I'm not trying to turn this video into a referendum on Green Day's punk cred, but I think that's where the conversation is going to go, so I do want to touch on it. And I can't say what was going through their heads when they considered this decision to sign.
I think that like overall, like these people, they still need a livelihood, and the fucking like sell out, not sell out, like just because you signed to a label. If a fan base without a label was enough, a lot of people, at least back in the day, because now with the streaming services, miracles can happen when it comes to marketing, right? But like these people, they have families, they have a dream, but their dream, it costs a lot of their peers a lot of money. And I think that the argument of selling out or not is like, let's put it this way. Their families, because they sold out, right, do not suffer from like being scared of their loved ones that actually they support in their dreams, making them actually completely broke. And I think that this is an argument that is important that people tend to forget about, like the whole selling out thing, because like this is where like the line to me is drawn, where like the family of these people, they need to eat, they need to fucking do the thing, they need to deal with usually like people that end up with drug addiction, like with emotional problems that are out of this world, and without this major without this label signature, these people they rely on fucking selling t-shirts and fucking like copies of CDs that are way not enough for their for them to actually like live a life where they are not suffering from the dream of someone from their family. I think that like, and or thinking this think about it this way, like when they sign out, the first people that are reassured and do not have to fucking care about their fucking about how they will pay tomorrow bills are the families of these people, so their children, their spouses and stuff. And I think that like the whole selling out is an argument used by people that do not understand that like this industry is still an industry, and that this job, being an entertainer, is still a job, is still a career. And the only problem is that like because it's so sparkly and shiny and with all kind of like people kind of tend to misunderstand that like it has paychecks. Like it has paychecks like every other career, and the only thing is that like the first paychecks are so fucking stupidly low that like well, you gotta allow some credit for to the people that actually choose to fucking give up on the being a fucking public charity case, and allow themselves to actually like get some freedom and allow some freedom for the people that supported them. Because a lot of these artists, people tend to forget that their families are behind them. There's they are the fucking the fucking labels that that they sign after that will support and their travel and their expenses and their I mean, you get what I'm saying. Maybe I'm wrong about this, don't like, but I think that like the whole like signing off a label doesn't make you punk or an artist or stuff like that. I think that like it's something that like people, it's an idea that it was often misunderstood, and especially now not kind of answered the right way. It's signing for a label, it's about money, and this money before these artists they sign a label, they don't have it whatsoever. And what's good with a label is that like they get paychecks. It's not a fucking it's not $1 billion. I'm sorry for going for on this trend, but it's not a fucking $1 billion that they get and they get to play with. It's paychecks, it's salaries, it's able to afford health insurance and stuff like that. Because what are you gonna tell to your health insurance if you tell them that you are in a rock band? What the fuck are you gonna how the fuck are you gonna justify that you deserve to pay less for your health insurance? I'll just give you this example because like basically when you sign to a label company, this argument, well, you have a superior, and basically you can actually for example have a contract. Try to fucking take a loan if you do not sign in a label. What are you gonna say to your banker that you have a rock band and that you follow this you try to fucking become a rock star? Like, and this is the side that like people do not understand. Who gives a fuck about being a punk or not? Listen to the songs that they write. Everyone is punk enough. What's not punk is to disrespect people that actually have a livelihood, lose their health insurance, lose any hope to have a fucking loan unless they fucking have 2 jobs, and technically are accepted by their families or their close ones as basically charity cases that need help to achieve their dreams. A lot of people follow and help them, but here's the thing: when you sign in a label, these fears and these problems, they disappear because you have an employer. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to be mean, but I heard this argument about being punk, being rock, being whatever, and there's a lot of being able to afford a loan, being able to have a health coverage for your whole family that you cannot fucking afford or have if you do not sign a label. All right, that's I apologize if I sounded mean. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but it's just like it doesn't take away the message. It's just, I mean, I get myself. Anyway.
Into a major, but I am sure that it was not easy because they knew that they would be burning a lot of the bridges to the DIY community that they love. And as you may have heard, that is exactly what happened. They were, of course, instantly branded as sellouts, as I'm sure plenty of people in the comments are going.
Yeah, right. Sellouts. And sellouts for what? Because they fucking need the money. If it's not about them, it's about the fucking people that they fucking care about. And think about it this way, to just like finish about this argument with a positive note. Imagine that they sell out and they can fucking finally pay back all the fucking efforts that their families and friends did for them to go this far and actually to fucking spoil them. Think about it this way, all right?
going to say. They were banned from Gilman, and
Isn't that awesome to be able to fucking pay back all these people that fucking loved you and support your dreams? Well, signing in a label, this is what it allows you to.
overnight they became one of the most hated bands in the eyes of the DIY punk community. But here's what I love about Green Day, and kind of the main thing I wanted to get across in this video, is that although the DIY community turned its back on them, they never turned their back on the community. And again, I'm not here to be the defense attorney in the trial of Green Day's punk credibility, but they've done a lot of things for their community that I personally think are pretty cool. Here's a couple examples. Back in 2008, as you can see here, they bought Gilman a brand new sound system. A few years back, Billy Joe did a side project with Tim Armstrong and his son called The Armstrongs, and all the proceeds of that went to benefit Gilman. Back in 2015, they played a show to benefit the punk publishing company AK Press when their warehouse.
Yeah, so basically, not only that, they were able to pay back, but it's actually fucking use the fact that they signed to a label to actually do charity, which is actually fucking mind-blowing. It's actually such fucking good kids, what the fuck?
Burned down. You heard me talk earlier about the excellent East Bay punk documentary Turn It Around, which I highly suggest you turn out. They executive produced that movie. And in this context, executive produced usually means paid for. I mentioned Pansy Division earlier, the aggressively queer punk band they took out with them on tour, and I just wanted to share this clip about how seriously they took that decision.
There was a show in Fairfax, Virginia, where the promoter did not want us on the bill. So Green Day said, if Pansy Division don't play, we don't play. We played the show.
And lastly, when they signed to Warner, they made sure to structure their deal so that Lookout would actually still own their first two albums. That was their way of paying it forward and helping the label that helped them get to where they were. And they didn't have to do any of that. They could have said, oh, you guys don't like us anymore? Well, fuck you too. We're rock stars now and we don't need you, so go fucking kick rocks. But they didn't. They took the high road, and as somebody who really believes in positivity and getting rid of the gatekeeper punk police bullshit, I absolutely love this.
I absolutely love this as well. This is what differentiates a rock star to a fucking legend, what they did.
I love that they continually take the high road. And just a quick aside, I'm not going to get into it too much here, but I also have to give Steve Aoki some props for that too. As you may or may not know, he kind of came up in the same scene as I did, the 90s DIY hardcore scene, and he still cares about hardcore too. Check out his punk label Dim Mock Records if you haven't. So the big question, did they sell out? Well, according to Steve Albini and a bunch of kids who wrote letters to Maximum Rock and Roll back in the 90s, the answer is yes. And if that's what you think, there's nothing I can do or say to talk you out of it. But in my opinion, the whole idea of like accusing people of selling out, of calling people sellouts, really just shows you how endemic quote unquote tall poppy syndrome is in punk culture. If you haven't heard that term, here's the basic idea. A perceived tendency to discredit or disparage those who have achieved notable wealth or prominence in public life. Sounds pretty familiar, right? But anyway, to get back to the original topic, regardless of how you feel about this decision, signing to a major label was without a doubt the key decision that took them from being a big fish in the small pond of DIY punk to the top of the Billboard charts, to being big fish in the very biggest pond of all. So that was key factor number 2, which brings us to key factor number 3, their timeless songs. Last but definitely not least, the real key to Green Day's success is simple. It's their incredibly great songs, and specifically that they're not just catchy songs, but the kind of classic, timeless songs that transcend genre and trends and sound great for decades. So yes, they were fortunate to come up in that vibrant Bay Area scene, and yes, signing to a major label gave them the resources to reach a huge audience, but none of that would have been enough for them to get this big without the songs. And just to prove this out, look at the many other 90s bands who also came from the DIY scene and signed to major labels, but couldn't break out like Green Day did. Jawbox, Shudder to Think, and Jawbreaker are just a few examples of that. And the reason why the major label jump worked so well for Green Day where it didn't work for others is deceptively simple. The answer is in Green Day's hooks, their choruses, the lyrics that are as close to universally appealing as you're gonna get, and that is why a major label is perfect for them, because they had the kind of material that they knew would appeal to millions of people all over the world. They just needed a platform that would help them get it out there. And I'm just absolutely blown away at the impact their songs have had, at how many people love these songs from all different walks of life all over the world. For example, my wife's sister, who mostly listens to Walmart pop country, loves Green Day. She can sing along to every one of their singles. You'll hear Time of Your Life played at high school graduations by people who have never even thought about punk rock in their lives. I saw some middle school kids playing Green Day covers in the park this summer, and the fact that Green Day's music connects with those kids the same way it connected to me and my friends when we were their age 25 years ago is a testament to how universally appealing these are. They're just...
It's true. It's true that like Green Day has something that like they really created like a music that like anyone can find something to like about to like something about it. Let me rephrase it. Green Day wrote like created art that is that anyone can find something to love about them. Like anyone, for real, like anyone can find something cool about Green Day and like it. And I think that like this is there's a lot of this discussion about like being an edgy band, a dark band, like being inaccessible, you know. And I think that overall, what you just said is actually something that I believe is way more difficult than created some masterpiece that only a few can understand and enjoy. Creating something for everyone that anyone can actually like enjoy and just vibe with, you know. And yeah, like I think that like this takes a lot of a mastery, you know, to fucking be able to fucking create like a music like this, you know. Art like this.
That damn good that they transcend genre and time and walk of life. Look, it's hard enough to write a hit in any genre, but writing a song that touches millions of people across multiple generations, across decades, that is something only the very, very best can do, and something that honestly I'm not sure any punk band has ever done. And I could go on about this forever, but in my opinion, one of the big things is that their references weren't other punk bands. You know, they weren't trying to write songs that sounded like Isocracy and Corrupted Morals. They were trying to write songs that were like Queen or the Beatles, other bands that have written timeless songs that stayed relevant for decades. And judging by those kids covering their songs in their park, I think they pulled it off. So that is key factor number 3, their timeless, iconic songs.
So there you go. That is my 2 cents.
I think like they're timeless. They're timeless. I apologize. They're timeless, iconic songs. I'd go further and say they're timeless, iconic, just art, because it takes into account the way they look, the way they act, the kind of like the energy that like they are like. It takes into account their aesthetics, for example, you know. So yeah.
On how Green Day got so big.
But I agree completely.
And also the impact of their legacy. And like I said, I'm not trying to turn this into a debate about their punk credibility, and it's not my job to defend them, but my personal opinion, which this is my video, so I get to say what my opinion is. My personal opinion is that it's really fucking cool to see a band that came from that same like DIY punk community that meant so much to me when I was a kid become literally one of the biggest bands of all time. It's kind of the same thing I talked about in my Fall Out Boy video. Those guys came up in the 90s vegan straight edge scene just like I did, and it's been incredibly cool to see them also get to the level they have and shine a little bit of a light on the scene that we came up in. As far as the whole selling out thing goes, well, you can have your own opinion on it, but to me, like, what's better? Being true and reaching an audience of, you know, a couple thousand people, or making a few compromises and reaching millions and millions of people, many of which are going to get inspired to start their own bands and then maybe dig a little bit deeper into DIY culture and get into punk? Well,
yeah, especially like the compromises that they actually choose to do are actually invisible. Like I actually don't really see the sellout, and then you actually see a complete change in the band, you know. Like I think that like the compromises that he talks about were actually well thought out and did not hurt the band in any way. Yeah, so yeah, glory to Green Day.
I don't know, again, it's up to you to decide, but I personally am glad they did things the way that they did. Alright guys, well, that's all I have for now. If you found this video interesting or entertaining or informative or any of that stuff, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, share.
Yeah, if you don't forget to support Punk Rock NBA, share the love, and yeah. Thank you so much for this video. It was actually really awesome. Like, I didn't know this much about Green Day. So yeah.